and I've been working in environmental management for a number of councils, including in Auckland and Rotorua and down in Wellington, and I've been in Gisborne for about 8 years. With me I've got Dennis Crone, who is our senior water conservator, who's been with us for what, 5 or 6 years, Dennis? Oh. And who's got a long history too in this line of work. And also on behalf of Councillor Staffy, welcome to our 2 councillors here, Councillor Pam Murphy, who is your ward councillor for the Waikohu ward, and Councillor Manu Keddy, who, as you know, has taken an interest in the mining proposals that are flowing around. We can try and explain some of the issues and the processes around the consenting for the exploration for oil in this area, and the what may happen if the exploration turns out quantities of oil that can be produced in economical quantities, what could happen after that, and it will try and explain a little bit about the proposals that have been made to the council, or may be made in the future, and how the consenting process will deal with this. And yeah, happy to answer questions as well as we can. For all of us, this is sort of, these issues are new. We have no experience, and we're trying to learn while we're on the job, so to speak. I'm an urban planner by trade, so I'm certainly not a specialist in this kind of area. We are seeking cooperation and advice from other councils that have a lot more experience in this sort of stuff than we have, particularly the Taranaki Regional Council, because obviously Taranaki is the region where there has been some exploration and actually there's some production of oil there. We're also talking to the Hawke's Bay Regional Council because the company Apache and the New Zealand counterpart Tech, who are currently looking at East Coast areas, they're also looking at some sites in the Hawke's Bay area. And in fact, next week we'll go to a meeting with them and talk to the Hawke's Bay staff to make sure that we are taking into account what's happening in each other's region, and make sure that if there's any advantages in having economies of scale and maybe sharing approaches, that's what we can do. All right. Maybe Dennis, if you can start proceeding by explaining what we have received and how we're dealing with this, and then we can maybe move on to what may happen after this.
Yeah. First of all, we got an application for water permits, which is for the water that they need for these seismic shock holes. Perhaps we should start, I don't know how familiar you are with what they are planning to do right now, but it's the lines of seismic survey. They'll be drilling a hole about 10 metres deep, 4 inches big, so it's not a big hole. The drill bit does need cooling and lubricating, so they will be putting materials down, and the water is about 800 litres per hole, and Manu might have counted the number of holes better than me. He got a bigger figure than me, but I thought it was about 725 holes, but somewhere under about 800, depends. They're about 80 metres apart, so they'll be drilling a lot of holes, and each hole needs 800 litres of water. And it sounds a lot of water, but when you think for the Whatatutu and Tikaraka town augmentation, like you people might have a tank, and we allow you 1,500 litres a day for your permitted take. So the council does have permitted take rules for groundwater, but we don't have any permitted take rules for surface water. So therefore TAG and Apache, because they're taking water, have to have a resource consent. So they have applied for that. We've acknowledged it, which means we've accepted their consent application, and some of you have probably got copies of it. I know, it's a public document, so everyone's welcome to have a look at that, and we'll probably, Manu's got the map I see with where the lines are, and you can see exactly where these things are. So we've got an application. We have 5 days in which to accept or send it back. We've accepted it. If we send it back, it means basically that it's an incomplete application, but these are professional organisations, so they have provided a lot better application than what we normally receive from people applying for resource consent. In fact, we probably accommodate applicants pretty well for people that don't have a lot of robust science behind their application. So we've accepted it. The next question is whether we notify the consent, which is a public ad in the paper. And for this level of application, I would normally recommend non-notification. And that is on an assessment that the application doesn't have a significant or a no more than minor adverse effect on the environment. So we're drilling these holes. They're going to put a shock down them, which is an explosion, and then they'll have like earphones which will record the way the sound waves go down. They'll hit different layers under the ground and bounce back up, and they'll record the time that it takes for that wave to go down and back. So if they hit something a bit more solid, it'll go down, hit something, come back, and that gives the exploration company a bit more information about the geology. And in some ways, we're quite interested in the information that they provide, because most of our geological surveys here are just from geologists collecting rocks and guessing which way the rocks slope, and guessing from looking at different landscapes how the land is developed. So this will give us a bit more confirmation that that is correct. It's just a side issue. When they drill the holes, because they'll be putting the water in, they'll be adding what we call drilling fluids. Some people call it drilling mud. It's usually a mixture of bentonite clay and other things that they call proppants and lubricants, and we need to get an understanding of what's going down the hole. And that'll be, I think from my understanding, it's about 2% of the mud will be additives like clay, but generally it's water, and it's cooling, and that'll be circulated around. They'll try and recirculate what they can, try and recover what they can, and what isn't recovered will just be in the spoilings that come up, because they'll take that whole pipe filling, it'll come out of the ground and it'll sit in a little pile, and they'll put pea metal down the hole. So what soil comes out will be replaced with pea metal. So the additive is, we've had discussions, and TAG Apache have been asking us, do they need a resource consent for the additives going in? And after discussing, they decided they'd better apply for a discharge consent as well. So that is discharge to land for this material, and we'll be assessing that. So those are the two consents we've got. Is the water take, where they will be taking the water from is pretty much undecided. They sort of feel that they would like water take that's nice and easy, of course, so they'll be looking for farm dams perhaps that's nice and easy with flat land that a helicopter can land right close, and they can put their bucket in, get their quantity of water. Because they're looking at this time of the year, it'll be interesting, because I think landowners that have dams will probably not want them to use that dam because it's getting into the dry season. They may want to take it out of a river, or they may want to take it from a farm reticulated system. So if the farmer has spent a lot of money and got a reticulated system and got a tap somewhere, they'll be pretty handy to line their helicopter up, turn the tap on and fill up their helicopter bucket with water from that. So there's those sources of water. If they were to take it from a farm dam, our rules designate that that is a permitted take, so they wouldn't need a consent for that. They would need the permission of the landowner because it's his dam and, you know, to get the access in. So that's probably about enough on the consents, and if there's any questions, I may have missed something.
Is the river a permitted take? Water from
No, the river's surface water, so it definitely needs a consent, yes. Yeah, and that's mainly why they have applied for a consent, because they felt that they can't get the water they need, or they may not be able to get the water they need from farm dams. And groundwater out of a bore, they're allowed a small amount, like 1 cubic metre per day. So over 6 weeks they could get 42, yeah, no, it's 10 cubic metres, sorry, so they could get 400 cubic metres of the 600 that they need out of groundwater, and that would be permitted, but they still need some more. So they're saying let's apply for a consent because we will be taking some from surface water.
So with the private water availability, who a pension tag are you dealing with when you've got that resource available?
Don't know, that's
So
up to
they
them.
where's the contact?
The contact for them
Yeah.
to get the water, well, they'll have to find that
No,
themselves.
if
That's
you've
not our
already
job.
got something,
Yes.
and you just say, well, we may have something. When
If you've got some water, then
Just
yes.
talk to Tag direct.
Yeah,
Are
I'd
they
get
in
them
town?
to.
No,
No,
I can.
no, you'll need to get the details off the resource consent. We can certainly give you that. Because they will be looking for sources of water, and I presume they'll be looking for sources close to where they're doing their shot holes, because they don't want to ferry the helicopter too far at $600 an hour, whatever it costs.
How far helicopter flight from here?
Quite a distance when you consider the amount of holes they do and how much water they need. They can't take a tanker with them because
What's it, 2-minute flight time or what?
well, we'll
Shall
kind
we?
of give you a bit of a
Yeah, that's a good
overview
idea.
of where everything is. But just 2 questions.
Yep.
In terms of the RMA, define what's the definition of consultation with the iwi? What's the definition of iwi in terms of the RMA rules?
Oh, as far as my understanding is, it
A Māori walking down the street?
shouldn't be,
No,
no.
it's Owen Lloyd
No,
coming
it
in.
should be a designated organisation that they deal with.
Okay.
What,
The other,
yeah.
the other question is, this resource consent is just for the preliminary exploration only, eh?
Yes.
Then they've got to go through another
Oh, yes, if they,
process
yes,
to if they want to come back and do some more stuff, they have to go through a process again.
yes,
Is that right? Okay.
yes, and they'll have to get a bore permit. They're drilling a well, and we have, under our transitional regional plan, we have rules that say that anybody that drills a bore, we want the information back. So we get the bore log, so they tell us, you know, they've drilled through 10 metres of silt, and then they've got a bit of gravel, then they've got some sand, then they've got
Okay,
some
so
rock.
you get the whole.
So we'll get that
layers.
bore log, and we've got files for over 1,600 bores at the council now. So we've got bore logs So that's how many bores that we know about. And these are mainly for water. So people, you know, orchardists and people that are drilling a hole for water, for household, they should apply for a bore line, for a bore permit. It costs about $130, so it's quite a cheap thing, because basically we just say, yes, go and do it and give us the information. And then there's what they do with that hole is the next stage. So if they're drilling for water and they want to take water, that's when you need a resource consent for a water take. If you're drilling for oil, it's the bit that Hans was talking about, it's a bit different. And we'll be liaising with Hawke's Bay and Taranaki a bit more on that.
We've got in the layman's terms the new breeds of environmentally friendly additives which have a low toxicity, low bioaccumulation and high biodegradation characteristics.
Good question, because when you buy stuff in the shop, quite often they have the term biodegradable, which just means that in nature, within a short length of time, you won't be able to find it. I can give an example, DDT, which we know has quite a high residual effect. The byproducts of DDT have a half-life of 4,000 years. So that means if you put DDT on your land, in 4,000 years, half of it is still there. A highly biodegradable product will be all gone within a short period of time. So it'll be more like 6 months. So that means that within 6 months you can't detect it, so it's just broken down. And another example might be Roundup chemical. It has a very short half-life. It breaks down in water, it breaks down when it hits soil, and it breaks down under UV light. So you've got some chemicals that break down rapidly, and some chemicals that hardly ever break down. So that phrase there is basically trying to reassure people that they're using modern biodegradable products that are quite natural. They're either inert, in other words, they're like the bentonite clay that they put in is a natural product. That, you know, people are probably aware there's a bentonite clay mine just handy. So, you know, if we were measuring bentonite in this environment around here, we would find it quite often. So if a miner or a well driller, and most of our water well drillers do use bentonite clay. So we ask them what they're using. If they say it's just bentonite clay, we're less concerned about that than if they said we're using a proprietary mix that might have other things. And we will be particularly looking for any hydrocarbons, you know, petrochemical type thing. And we'll be looking for any other things that might have heavy metals or elements that we know don't break down.
Is it what it means by low toxicity? Is that
Toxicity is a term meaning that it's harmful to animals usually. So the toxicity tests are usually done on animals, and they say how much you need to eat to kill an animal, and that's why they use mice and things like that to test that. So they'll be saying that it's low toxicity, that you can eat a lot of it without harming you.
Wouldn't recommend it though. So it would be a guarantee that if it should, it won't leach into the waterways within its biodegradable type. It won't cause any harm to the waterways, given the
Well,
additives that
that's what we have to assess. It's our task to assess that.
if they apply for land discharge.
Yeah, if they apply, we'll ask for the safety sheets for the chemicals they use.
Will they disclose all chemicals, or just some?
Will they what?
Will they disclose all the chemicals that they use, or just some?
Well, I hope so. Yeah,
How can you
how do
know?
we police that
How do you
is
know?
is a good question, yes. And that's something that we're asking the petroleum industry now is what sort of self-monitoring they do and how can we put an auditing system on that.
You'll have to have one on site. They'll have to pay for it.
Can they
That's the
give you
only
a
way to do it.
sample to test it?
Oh, yes, they'll give us what we ask for, yes.
Because that seems to be the biggest thing coming in from overseas information, is the full disclosure of chemicals that they're using.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because once it's in the water, it's being tested to actually have all these harmful chemicals. This is not the exploratory so much work, but the fracking.
And we're doing the actual, the fracking, yes, yes.
So that auditing process, you need a cultural and a technical on-site auditor, independent of them
Mm.
and approved by the community. Because, you know, like you take that RENA thing that happened up here, they never had anything like that on that boat.
No.
So the stakeholder in terms of this is the local community, and even though there might be some good benefits coming out of that, the local community has to get the auditing on-site thing in place,
Mm.
and they should pay for that.
So what would the auditor do you think?
What she's saying is that we need to make up a checklist
Yeah.
of all the chemicals that they're using, and they need to be verified that those are those chemicals. So prior to that, they should produce a list of chemicals, and then we go through it and have a look.
Yeah, that has to be a must, because overseas, they've actually refused to disclose some of the chemicals that they've used. They used to say they won't do it here.
It's
So
just like,
we need some form of protection.
In terms of your development, because at the moment you're building the plane while you're flying it, eh? In terms of your experience and everything around this particular processing program. So the question is, when you're developing that, what's the council's process in developing a policy? Like, if you're going to issue a resource consent, there must be against some set of rules. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
Dave can probably
Then,
talk
if
about the
that's the
whole
case-
process of, setting out
So if that's the
plans.
case, who develops the process and who develops the checklist? And then how is it monitored and then how is it reported back? And who does it be reported back to? Because if council's going to create these policies and that, then the usual process is consultation with the people. That gives you the information to enable your policy to be developed.
I
Or
think
does council just do their own?
we don't have a specific policy on oil production. All we've got is a number of rules in the plan which basically say that if you're going to extract oil, it involves drills and pumps and probably truck movements or building up a pipe, etc. I mean, the assessment of the effects of those activities need to be assessed against the wider sort of policies and objectives of the district plan, which are not specific to oil. So there's about mitigating environmental effects, about being compensated, taking into account the values of the local community, area, etc. If the exploitation of Russian oil involves anything of any significant scale, I think we will be looking at a non-profit consent, and we will be looking at an opportunity for the community to have input into the consenting process. But really, at this stage, all we've got is the application for seismic drilling or seismic testing, which is a relatively small scale and benign process, and we, although we will be talking to our colleagues in other regions, as Dennis says, the initial effects are such construction where you're looking at a non-notification of that particular consent, but anything in terms of production, it is quite a different ballgame.
It's just that in one's experience, that sometimes it's only a pimple, but after scratching it a while, you end up having amputation because it's kind of started off small but ended up. So it's really trying to understand in terms of council is making decisions on behalf of us. The question is, when do we come into the process to actually provide advice, and in terms of cultural advice, where do you get that from?
I think, as far as this is concerned, this is normally a decision that is, the council's got discretion there, and the council has given officers
Okay.
the power to make those decisions. But you are now aware of this particular proposal, you have particular views on it, and you disagree with the possibility that the council will grant this consent not notified. I think this is the time to act and say to the council, well, actually, guys, you may think this is not notified consent, but we disagree with that for these reasons.
Well, just as a starting point, in the packet number 1, in this document here, appendix 1, they talk about best management practices, and then they've got local engagement. They've got a whole lot of steps.
Yes.
The first thing is number 1, does the council have an obligation to the Treaty of Waitangi? That's the first one, and if so, how can the local engagement express the treaty because the companies tag in the patch are indicating that they want to draw up a best management practice in this exercise?
They,
Yep.
and I'm not aware of what they've actually done, but they have made a statement saying we will consult with BBN on
I can
this. And I think
fill that in.
there are some
Fill
meetings,
in on that.
there are some meetings planned, or I'm not sure, but if those meetings take place and you absorb the information and you don't think that's enough and you want the council to
Well, if Alan's got the answer to that, I'll follow up on
A
that.
little bit more to that. Best management practice is quite a broad term.
Yeah.
What I can tell you is what we have that we can look at.
Oh, okay.
There is a New Zealand standard
The New Zealand standard,
on
standards.
drilling,
Oh, right.
and that tells them how thick the casing has to be,
Yep.
how they prove that casing won't crack
Right.
with what they're doing when they're drilling, how nothing from outside the drill casing will go down the outside of the casing, so that means how they've grouted it in, what they use for grouting, so that's all under New Zealand standard, can't remember the number, 4401 I think it might be, but don't quote me on that. So we will put a consent condition that they definitely have to meet that New Zealand standard, and that is for all well drillers, and most regional councils would put that as condition number 1 on your consent, is that you do what you say you're going to do, and if you do something different and we prove it, you'll be in court. The second one is that you'll meet anything that we can find that determines best practice, and the standard of drilling would be the first one, and then we would look at any documents that they provide us with as to what their best practice is, and that might be something they've found to be best practice around the country or around the world, and we'll look at that.
So
Question,
all legislation that's passed through the House falls within the treaty principles. So the question about that standard and that act, has that been taken into account?
well,
The treaty principles?
the Resource Management Act,
Yeah.
there's a number of clauses there right at the beginning of the Act.
Yeah.
Clauses 5 and clauses 8. Clause 8 says that every decision maker has to take into account the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi.
Oh, okay.
But the case in point here is that I think in terms of the seismic testing, if there are no discernible effects, and the landowners are giving access to the company, what is the effect on iwi?
two things. Just
And you may, I mean, I'm not saying there is no effect, but, you know.
I just wanted to know whether the treaty principles have been taken into account in regards to the act that defines that
Well, we have
standard.
to.
You're saying
two questions. Do you fellas have a drilling expert advising you?
We don't have one in the council, no.
Or, I mean,
Hans was saying we're trying to
talk to
bring in-
other councils, but in terms of an independent driller
Well, as a result of
thing
those
to
discussions,
provide.
we may get the application peer reviewed or something.
Yes,
But
Okay.
having listened to Dennis also, I mean, how many similar bores have been drilled in the district? You say 160 or something?
you might be aware when the gas pipeline
Yeah.
needed repair under the Whatatutu River, they used a horizontal drill under there, had the same sort of drilling bentonite clay, that was to put I think it was an 8-inch gas pipe through, so they bored, they laid the pipe over on that side of the river, bored through, and we had that as what's called limited notification, so we didn't put an ad in the paper, but we made sure that the landowners on both sides had happy with that. The iwi consultation and iwi agreement is something that we're developing pretty quickly now and improving. Some groups where we have a contact group that we deal with. Just to give you an example of what really works, that I'd like to work elsewhere, is Young's Head Station, who have had battles with iwi earlier days when their American owner bought their property. They now have a policy of very close consultation with iwi. They have a person that I can ring up and talk to over anything. Next Head Station have reacted very positively, like when they fill in their application form for every resource consent now, they tick that they want it publicly notified. So even if they're building a farm track, they notify it. So they keep it really open, and they through time have found that works really well. Publicly notify, let everybody have their say. The council's given approval to go and talk directly with an individual. Sometimes I might talk to him and just say, look, I don't think I'll notify this one, even though they've asked to, because it's so minor. What do you think? He might say, yep, just don't notify it, or he might say, we're having a hui, we need to discuss it. And that works really well. We're probably going to have to move a lot more hands too, aren't we, in this regard, and particularly in regards to water, because some of the treaty settlements are going to be more specific with how we liaise with iwi and hapu in regards to water matters. So that is an improving situation as well from our point of view.
A couple of questions. For those who've been living here in Mairano, how many knew about the drilling, the fixing of the gas line? Who was involved in any consultation of it? Yeah. The next one, the other one is just pick up on one of your statements that it's minor because it's only going to be a little hole and blah blah blah, and it's not going to have some effect on the soil. This is one of the problems we have as Māori, is it's not just about the soil. It's about the wairua, the mauri, of those aspects that are interconnected with Papatūānanga. So if you're going to drill a hole, it might be saying, like we say to a baby, this is only going to hurt for a little moment, and you put the needle in. But when you put the needle in, the stuff you put in the needle has a long-term effect on the person. And so it's just not a little thing when we just, you look at it as a minor thing. That's why I'm talking about the cultural issues in that. Has anyone actually sat down and explained about the Māori and the Wairua aspects
To us, no.
to doing anything around and to the land itself? These are some of the issues that I anyway raised, because in terms of cultural input, it seems as though that these things are not being addressed or even considered. And so when we talk about consultation with iwi, it's not just sort of saying, well, this is what we're going to do, folks. But it's about exploring those other issues a little bit more in depth. That's why I asked, you know, in terms of where have you got your cultural input to enable you to make decisions about this particular process. You know.
Yeah,
I understand this is not targeted at you guys, but it's
I'm quite
as
happy
council,
to
and
say it.
this is something that, you know, council needs to be a little bit more aware of nowadays,
We'll take that on board.
because that's what Tilka is talking about in terms of the treaty. It's not just the three principles of participating, but it's that protection. That protection principle is about protecting the whole, not just some parts
Yes.
of it. And for Māori, when we talk about the whole, the one thing, everything is interconnected to other things, and therefore until all that has been discussed, then you've had a consultation that enables you to make some decisions. So that's, you know, just one of the things that I think.
We would be very receptive to knowing what a good process is. You know, like, in my department, we're administering about 700 resource consents at the moment, just in water. We issue about 100 new ones a year. There's probably 3 or 4 times a year I'm really trying to get some input from iwi, trying to find out who the person is, and trying to get some input. So we're very receptive for having a process in mind. That's why I mentioned that if you've got someone that
Well,
that
I've
we
got
know.
you a framework, you might want to look at the Tainui group. It's Tuku Morgan, we have a Tainui River joint management plan. If you pull that stuff out, that'll give you some strong benchmarks for measuring it. The other one in Taro Sea Sands in Redland, because iwi had a customary usage of the resource, once that those minerals, as iron sands, start moving, they've got a treaty right on it. Now, Rutin has been telling me that the whiri koka, do you know about whiri koka?
It's the Pakikio Whirikoka is the area across the river.
In the Cape.
And it's about oil. And Ru's got these bottles of oil. And I said, oh, what do you do that for? He said, oh, well, it's been a cultural belief that this whirikoka, the oil, they call it kaitia, that it's linked to the Māori treaty. So there's another cultural aspect you need to look at. What were the traditional beliefs in terms of whirikoka, and how does it, and how do you link this into this?
Yeah, no, I think they're very important questions, because you know, we do have to take all that into account, and we need a means to do that efficiently and successfully, basically.
Dennis, in the 30s, I understand there was some tests done by Karamoana and some dye that was put in and to test the aquifers and stuff and see where it came up. Are you aware of those tests?
Yeah.
It came up the coast. It turned out that the water close to Puia was connected to Waikaremoana. Have you heard of any?
Even up the back here at the back of Moonlight there, Uncle Buddy was saying that there was, they heard that there was some results from that same thing, that of the interconnect, and there's also up in Whakaro, on Whakaro Road, just there is a lake just off the side of the river that it was, said that that also was connected to Waikato Moana.
Yes, I've heard those anecdotal
But can-
stories, but I
Can you
haven't
get
seen
any, can you get any kind of,
Records.
because if that happened, council must have been involved somewhere along the line? Because I think that has a very, especially
water
if
board or
this thing goes to the next level.
Or could we request a new test?
You'd request it from the council, from the ratepayers to do this, would you? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
But you should
A lot
have
of these
record.
tests would be done by Crown Research Institutes doing national projects. And I
Well,
would
they
think
could have
that
done
dye thing would be sort of a carbon dating type exercise, I would think, looking at a blueprint. You know, what we do is we do aging of water, and it's that way. So we can look at an aquifer and say that, you know,
Well, we don't want a tribal war with Tuhoi, because some of our bentonite and mud starts popping up in Tuai.
from there, yes, well, water is quite, you know, that does happen. You know, the hydraulic pressures. Can be
Yeah, and
quite-
that's why,
quite
you know,
changeable.
I just, if somebody could do some kind of inquiry about what was, you know, did it happen, or is this a urban myth, then we need to send that to the Mythbusters to come and fix for us, or to, you know, satisfy that was
Yes.
one way or the other. Because that would have a very strong impact on any major, especially fracking drilling, because unless we know where those water aquifers run, they could, without knowing it, go into it.
Yes.
And
Somewhere else.
and then we have Tuhoi on our backs there because somebody's pinched their leg.
Yeah, doesn't even have to be that sort of,
Yeah, but I'm
just even more local is still important, isn't
Yeah.
it, that if that's there.
Just going back to the seismic testing and the water discharge, this is sort of water tank application that's related to that. Do you believe as EV and Hubble you want to have an input into that application?
Well, I think every step of the way, I think it should be, because I think it's it's all part. Well, I thought it was part of the RMA that iwi should be consulted.
Yeah.
Now, consultation, if you, I don't know if you recall, but Winston Peters took Wellington Airport to task over the consultation definition, and you see, there's no point in consulting with us anymore because decisions have already been made. Therefore, in essence, we have not been consulted with.
Well, the-
Iwi has. That's why I said, what is your definition of iwi? Was it just some Māori walking down the street? Now you've spoken to Māori, so now you've achieved the purposes of the act, or you said that it has to be an organised organisation. Well, the key question here is to the people here: have you been consulted with? Did you know that you've been consulted with?
But also, in,
The answer is no.
about 96% of our resource consent applications that we receive are processed without notification, right? Because the effects are
Minor.
either minor or anybody who's affected has said that they haven't got a problem with that. And as Dennis has said, from our point of view, the effects of this particular application are or appear to be quite minor, and in a normal course of events we would not notify it. But if you think differently, as I said before, you've got to let us know. If I asked you the question and you answered it now, so we'll take that on board. It would also help us if you actually put it in writing, so we have a record of that.
And most consents that I get to consider, I consider, you know, is it less than minor or more than minor? If I think it's borderline, I will go to our Māori liaison officer at the council and ask him who is the person for me to consult with, to talk to. And if it's limited notification, like the Clearwater up here, we agreed it wasn't public, but it was limited, and iwi was a limited party, so they get the full consent, they get all the reports, and they report back, tell me if there's any issues. And for that, just as another for example, because the Clearwater goes back a long way, the iwi person or group that was responsible for providing iwi input originally was the Matawai Marae Committee. Now, I don't know whether that was the right one or not, but I went to the Maori liaison officer. He said stick with that same committee. It happened, Star originally was the chairman, my understanding was, so I spoke to him. Sent him all the stuff, asked him for a written submission. He said, oh, we're actually having a hui. This is just a couple of weekends ago. It's fresh in my mind, that's why I'm mentioning it.
Where's the water being taken from?
Well, this was to build a bridge, but there was another one before where they were taking water out of the Waikahu River.
Oliver Road.
Oh, the Whatatutu River.
The Waikahu, Oliver Road.
It's like asking the Australian Prime Minister if he can put the harbour bridge in Auckland up.
Well, that's an issue, yes, yes.
The other one is, do you fellas have, do you get advice from geologists as well? Now, because we know that the stability of this country, right? They're going to put a whole series of lines that charges about 15 metres down into the ground, and then you have a little shake like that all the way through, and then all the mud and the hillside gets a bit of a papatuanuku, then starts to get a bit of an itch and starts to scratch, and then but do you fellas consult with geologists in terms of the stability of the soil and the ground and all that, or do they provide that as a geologist report in their applications?
It depends on the scale of the operation. Their application should be in size and scale with the potential effects. So
how many explosions are they going to have they applied for?
well, it's 800. There's 50 kilometres of lines and every 80 metres. Just the history of seismic testing, a lot of you will remember the seismic trucks that used to come around. They had a big pad they put down on the ground and they shook it. And it just went, oh. And then they measured, they had their microphones. Now that had what I call a physical wave. It's like a wave in the water. It's actually physical, it moves. And they measured that. Well, they can measure not very far with that. We've got a guy trying to tout for business that he reckons he can find water, and he puts a steel stake in the ground and bangs it with a sledgehammer and measures the sound. So that's sort of the smaller scale. The next scale is this shaking. The next scale is this little bomb going off, and it's to make a sound basically. So they're bouncing sound waves because sound waves go further than.
So what's the size of the charge?
I don't know. I haven't researched that yet. But it'll have it in the application.
If you don't think it'll trigger an earthquake.
No, it's not so much a earthquake, but I just come off those hills today, and it's like that.
Yes.
The hills are like that, and there's some cliff faces, and there's some things where the pigs and things are going to go into there, and knowing, like I said, the instability of the country, that's the question is. That's why I asked about geologists and that you guys are
So where those
satisfied.
peaks are going, will they have to dig a shelf, a bench
No.
in there, or will they do it
No,
on?
they just drill straight into it.
Yes.
But what they do is, where the pegs are, there's a little space where they can, because they got to bring the drill rig in to drill the hole by helicopter, so they need a bit of a landing.
I was just thinking if
Pod.
they're doing a lot of those landings on the steep thing, our soil conservators would be pretty keen to know what.
No, well, because the helicopter's you got to have a good base to put the drill rig on. But I'm just, asking these things to see just how thorough and what kind of consent systems
Well,
that
we
you
have the New Zealand
That's
Geological Survey, we have all those maps on
And you have
our
standards and all that.
GIS as layers, so someone like me, I can look at it and see where the geologists have found fault lines and things like that. Can get an understanding of the layers as far as the geologists have said, but I wouldn't be surprised if a survey like this changes those maps, perhaps, because they'll get better information.
Yeah, because I don't understand, because I'm too old, but what I want to know is, I don't know nothing about scaling, but it's the effect it will do to, that's what I want to know, you for, because I don't understand figures, but it's the effect it will have upon our food, like the rivers. What would it, how would it affect would it affect the
Livestock,
Yes,
animals, wild animals.
I guess it's
I've
only
heard nothing about that, so I want to
it's only my opinion, but I sort of see the seismic survey is not having a great effect. The exploratory wells would have a greater effect, and then a production wells would have a far greater effect. Once they do the exploratory well, they will know, and in that leaflet from Tag Oil it talks about conventional recovery, or the more modern, what they call the more modern, which is the fracking type recovery. That will be determined by what they find in drilling, which is a lot more certain than the seismic. So the seismic survey is just to decide where to drill, and if it's worth drilling to have a look, then they drill and have a look, and then they'll decide how they're going to get the oil or gas out. And that's, each of those steps has a greater and greater, so, even if we look at the level of consultation, the level of consultation at that first level might be less and get more and more as we get in. So by the time we get production, or even exploratory, as Hans said, it's highly likely to be fully notified, full consultation, and we do expect the applicant to do most of the consultation. We expect to see who they've consulted with in their application, and often that's very lacking.
Joe, just to give you an idea of cultural best practice benchmarks, or what they're indicating here, is I do work for Eastland Group now, and we're developing geothermal options in Kawerau, and we've just entered into a deal with Tainu to head into PNG. Now, the cultural engagement practices with the PNG village people is very, very strict. And so we're meeting, there's a 22-person delegation arriving in Auckland on Wednesday. And so we're starting the engagement purely on cultural. They own the exploration rights, and they're looking for Eastland Group to do all the exploration with geothermal. But Richard Brooking, from the chairman of the Eastern Community Trustees, agreed the cultural engagement is paramount, so that we don't hurt those villages. Quite likely in New Britain they're going to have about 16 small geothermal plants. So what we can do to help you with, because we've developed quite a bit in the Eastland Group, is to help the council, because we now have Tuku Morgan around the table from Tainu, and Mighty River Power may be taking up the big geothermal plants over there. And because Tony has done a lot of work on treaty relationships, we're willing to share those templates with you next week on Monday. As in, I sit down with Tuku and we start
Because you're doing that as a company, Eastern Group, doing that because that's your responsible way of
I'm the cultural negotiator on behalf of PNG, and I'm advising Matt on how to do the explorations in PNG.
Is there any other
Yeah.
questions that people have?
You're talking about you being in as a company and you're advising him. Is it not up to the company that's applying for the resource consent?
Yeah, it's still
to
good.
be consulting you?
Yeah, well,
Because
that's
what we'll do is
We're
we'll get,
talking about the models of
yeah,
cultural
we'll get
engagement.
the
Just-
application and it won't follow those sort of models, so it'll be really good to have something like that.
Just to let everybody know,
So
because
what
we'll
it-
keep going back to that
Yeah.
particular point, Tag and Apache will be at the marae on the 6th to actually consult with iwi.
All right.
That's you, not, at the moment they've met with myself, Pene Brown, and Peka,
Pera Nikora? Pera Nikora?
yeah, Nikora,
Pere.
Okay, yeah.
Jody?
I haven't seen them yet, and Ron
Epe.
Nepe. And so, as a result of the discussions we've had with them, my challenge to them was, kanohi kitea. Paramai, kanohi ki te iwi, kōrora te kia rātou. Don't talk to me, you come and talk to the people. And so, they've agreed, and they will be flying in from Canada, and they will meet with us on the 6th at the marae. So that you can talk to them about and ask them the questions you need to satisfy your concerns and issues. So they were, again, it's about their consultation process. They can only operate on the advice they've been given. And this is why I've been talking about in terms of cultural participation, that, you know, I'll be talking to men, and also, I'm sure, our councillors will be raising this issue in terms of let's get it right the first time, because there's going to be a lot more. I mean, there's permits right across. Tag and Apache only got about, I think, 2 or 3 squares in this district, and they still, other companies who have permits to go into the Mangatu forest, up into Mangotani areas and stuff like that. So if Tag and Apache is successful, no doubt we're going to have this tsunami of companies coming in with their little diviners and starting. So, you know, let's use this as a stepping stone to get it right, so that when this happens, that the process is clear,
Yes.
and the process has been supported and things by the people, and that we understand that, and especially with the cultural issues. And one of the issues I'll be talking to thing about is that it seems as though I'd be interested to see the kind of cultural input that has been provided at this point in time.
I think the relationship with council is really important, because
Yep.
they could come to the marae and say, oh, we've consulted the iwi, and not tell you exactly, not tell the council. So I think council need to be tight with the locals as well.
Well, that's
so
why
that
council
people
needs to be consulting with us
Mm.
while we're consulting with others,
Yeah.
so that they know what's going on. We know what's going on with council. We have a relationship with council, and the thing is too, under that relationship with council, under the treaty agreement of the local leadership group, that there's going to need to be a lot more of that partnershiping with council. But at the same time, I think council needs to be sure, make it clear to anybody else where they need to go and who they need to talk to before they come back to you, so that they've got the answers to your questions. Because it seems to be a little bit vague on the cultural and the iwi consultation on your consent forms.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I think, from that point of view, this meeting has been useful. You've been quite categorical in saying that you believe you are an effective party in terms of the seismic testing. And it would help if you would, and maybe even after the meeting next week on the 6th, once you've heard what else they've had to say, whether you're still concerned, but if you are, let us know.
Because we are affected, because
Pretty probably after that, and we can take it into account in our decision.
Because, as I explained to one of your other colleagues one day, we've lived in this district for 1,000 years already, and we propose to live here for another 1,000 years. We don't live here because we choose to live here. This is our home, and so whatever you're going to do around it and through it and across it is going to have an effect on us. Now, I can understand your fellow's point of view is that you talk to the landowners because they own a piece of paper that says it's theirs. You know, government has given us a 2% compensation for taking all that, so they still got 98% yet to pay. And until that's been paid, it's still our land. And so therefore, they might have the top little inch grass on it, but as far as, just so that you fellas understand that our thinking, it's not about a Western approach that piece of land, fella got a paper, can do whatever he likes on it, you know. We don't see it that way, and that's where the issues start to happen, and that needs to be kind of taken into account. And to take it into account is not going and then carry on. It's come out and talk and see what kind of effects. How can we work to make it happen? If it's an important thing, how can we make it happen that there's a win-win situation at all parties? I know we voted in our councillors to be our voice, but that's in the Pākehā system. We're talking about the Māori system here, which we don't have any seats yet. Take a note, we need to. So, you know, there is a little bit more than just the surface stuff, eh?
I'd like to think that we're conscious of that. Talking personally, I would hope that you people see the way we do it as a professional way, under the bounds of the rules that we have, which is our council rules, and if there's a good or better way of doing it,
no doubt discussions will
be
bring
very
on,
receptive.
I don't think the council is operating as a Pākehā system, and certainly there's a modelling too. I mean, the resource management makes certain.
Have you spoken to Craig lately?
But we talked about before having to take into account the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi is central to the operation of the RMA, and we will do that. So
I think it's the treaty is like, the RMA is like the treaty. There's the English version, and then there's the Māori version. One says a square, the other says a circle.
And then you got the Whatatutu.
And then there's the Whatatutu version, which is the triangle. And we're all looking for a hexagonal.
Well, I think you should get your contacts right too. Star Ricky don't speak for us. We've got our own contacts over here.
We got two
I'm
Marais
conscious of that too, and you know, we could spend a lot of time trying to.
Well, that's where your cultural advisor should be doing that work for you.
just in terms of the Marais here, we got Te Wainui right down there, and we've Mangatu here. So Te Wainui, there's the chairperson over there. We'd be very interested as to whether we have some water there they could use. It needs to be tested first in terms of its capacity. The second thing is Manu and ourselves have been working through the Taiara Whitsi Housing Advisory Group, and we've got an excellent working relationship with the City Council, with Phil Woodruff and his team, and Manu is the councillor in Nona Ashton. So it's a win-win when we can work with the City Council and we can accomplish things quite rapidly, working as equal partners. So I'm very happy about this meeting. Manu?
So time's getting on for our visitors. So anybody else got any?
As a community person living here, my concern is about the environment, as Owen had put it, putting that needle injecting it, and also about the community itself, the water supply, how would it affect us? You know, it's bad enough in summertime now, people have to truck in waters. Is that going to happen? Because they have to do this process during the summertime, eh? So, you know, will that affect us as the township?
Well, we would think not.
Yeah.
The-
And we would like to take,
Yeah.
the council to take that into consideration.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why we're assessing the discharge consent, to make sure that the water that is being used for drinking water is not affected.
It's just that in summertime, people
Sure, yeah.
now are practically bathing in their own spit during summertime
Yeah.
because it's so dry.
Yes, no, we are aware of that, but the volumes of water are not great, and I can try and put it in context.
They won't get them out of the dams, I've just seen them.
No, I don't think so.
Even the ducks, only up to
And
the
even the rivers, like our irrigators, all the consents for irrigation out of the Waipara River has a limit. So we measure it at Kanakanai Bridge, and when it gets below 2,000 litres a second, it's a second, not a minute, not an hour, 2,000 litres a second, is when we get into a mode of more intensive monitoring. So Hydro Technologies do our monthly thing, they tell us it's getting down, we'll come down to weekly or daily monitoring. If it gets down below 1,300 litres a second, we'll stop irrigation. Now, this water permit would have the same restrictions, so if our water levels are getting down like they were in 1982-83, we might have to tell them to stop their seismic because there's insufficient water. So all water takes are assessed on how much they want to take and when, and are limited by what monitoring we do. I wouldn't like anyone to go away thinking we're a big tub of money that can do a lot of investigations, because we're quite poorly served in our own council, in actual fact, for a lot of water investigations.
just our water is so lousy to drink now. The last thing we want, and this is where the community wants, is to
Yes, yes,
for it to get worse.
yes, I couldn't tell you what was under the ground at Whatatutu.
So do you have a paper trail of what water tables you have here going back?
Most of our groundwater investigations are on the Poverty Bay Flats. So we've got maps of the aquifers there. We've done a bit of ageing stuff, and that's really expensive, like it's thousands of dollars for every test, so we don't commit the ratepayer to too much of that. We're looking at a study at the moment, which is what we call surface water, groundwater interaction, which is an area that we don't fully understand. But what we think happened in 1982-83, the kiwi fruit was at its maximum. We had our Makari aquifer, which is our biggest aquifer in the Poverty Bay Flats, was going down by our evidence. We measure the static water level, and in October it's usually at the highest, and then the end of the irrigation season is at its lowest. So we measure how much it bounces back each year. And in that early 1980s, I wasn't here, so I'm only reading these papers, but this is what I understand happens. It was going up and down like this, gradually going down. Alarm bells ring. What do we do about it? So that is when they did a bit of this surface water, groundwater interaction. What was happening? And what we found is when the drought was at its worst, we were ready to cut off the water because of what was happening at Kanakanai, but we were also measuring it down at Matafero. And the water was going down here. Everyone was pumping flat out because they thought the council was going to turn it off next week, but the level at Matafero was coming up. So that says to me that a key thing that we don't understand is that if the pumping takes the water out, but then if the river goes down that low, the water might come back out of the gravels under the ground and feed the river again. So there's things like this that are very costly models to do. We've just had a price in for $50,000 just to bring up some of the old information from the 1980s and re-look at it. So it will only I think it'll only tell us the same questions that we're already asking, is what happened in 1983. So it's really expensive investigations, and we need to do a lot more of that, and to expand that out to areas like the bottom of the Tiarai, Whatatutu, all the rivers that are coming down feeding into the Waipawa.
Yeah.
Would be really good for us to know, but it's a bit of a gap in our knowledge at the moment.
I think it's quite simple actually, because when we put in the septic tanks down there was water just, you couldn't even sink it down. You actually had to fill the septic tank up with water to get it down. There was heaps of water there. So if you had an underground system with a simple hole in the ground, you would know where if the river went down, you could measure it with these little holes, because you only have to go down about 3 feet,
Yeah.
and you hit the table down there.
Yeah, well, we monitor about 80 wells now, and we do that. Some of them have to have a tube up because it's positive pressure, it's artesian. And, the static water level might be up here.
Yep.
And then when the pumping goes with the irrigation, it might go down to there, it might go down to ground level, and it might go down lower. Most of them are down, 5 or 8 metres, and they might be sucking the water out from 50 metres down, but the water level is at 8 to 10 metres, and it fluctuates.
So what you're saying is we don't know a lot about what goes on under the ground around here.
We know a fair bit about the Poverty Bay Flats, because that's where we've been getting the consents. Nobody's been applying for it. We've never heard from you people wanting to drill wells up here. But when we do, we'll want to do it.
I think the net,
I'm just kidding you.
but I think maybe we should get something to measure this stuff.
You might put our rates up there if you do.
Well, that's
So the consent, there's 2 consents. One is to take water, and the calculations I did was the maximum sort of worst case scenario is that they've asked for 25,000 litres a day, 7 days a week for 4 to 6 weeks, which I calculated as just over 1 million litres of water from the rivers, as opposed if they can't get anything out of dams and ponds, but they're not going to take that much, but that's what they've applied for, so people should know that that's what we're consenting to. If it goes ahead, that's what we've
One of those
given them permission.
concrete tanks, about just a little bit more than that.
800 litres, yes, like a 44-gallon drum is 200 litres.
The big
so
concrete
4
tanks
of
that we have at home, 10,000
Oh, yeah, there's all different sizes. 10,000 litres.
3,000 litres, 3,500 litres.
No,
Yeah, that's 10.
no, he's just trying to get a picture of the amount of water.
Yeah, so 10,000, 800 litres is 0.8 of 1 cubic metre, or 800 litres, so you've got 10,000 in your tank.
Yeah.
So,
And then there's a second application, and that's for the discharge of the stuff that comes out of the hole, to leave that on the ground or to put it somewhere else, and that includes some chemicals that we're going to get information on what exactly is in the mixture.
and one of the reasons, like, when they were conversing with me, do we need a consent? My conversation was, well, I'd sooner you applied for a consent, whether you think you need one or not. And the reason for that is that allows the council to put conditions on the consent. If people just go out and do things, we don't know about it, they might consider that they're doing permitted activity, or they don't need a consent. But if they apply, we actually assess what they're doing, we'll monitor it, and we can put conditions, like we can say that they have to take all their cuttings away and dispose of them somewhere safely if we thought there was any material, or we might just say, look, there's nothing much there as long as you spread it out so that any contamination is spread evenly.
In one of your conditions, would it be possible to include, independent testing of, just so that they're used to the process, that we would like to have a little bit more control over this full disclosure thing, that we can do an independent test of that material, so that they get used to, by the time it goes into production, they know that they're going to have to be more transparent.
Not that we don't trust them the other day.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, no, it's
Could we
that's
include that?
pretty conceivable, you know,
One of the
like quite
conditions?
often if people are doing things that we're not sure about, we will ask the applicant to put what we call monitoring bores around the perimeter. So the likes of our transfer stations, the GDC, they have to get a consent, so we've got monitoring bores, and we get HTL, who are our contractors, to go and test the water around those monitoring bores so we can see if any leachate from the transfer station or any landfills. Even quarries sometimes will ask for monitoring bores if they're cleaning material and they've got ponds and they say they're treating the thing. We will put conditions, and that might be testing the water as it leaves a certain place, which is surface water, or it might be monitoring bores, which we can take samples of water and get them tested.
Because by the time, you know, if it does go into production, there seems to be the common complaint is that these concrete drilling wells, the casings sometimes crack and sometimes leak this fluid, and how would that be tested? It could we, you know, if it all goes into that.
Yes,
Just to
we
prepare
do
for that.
trust them to a certain extent in that
That's dangerous.
it is, but we still have the ability to check, and
I think we should really retain that
yes.
ability to check.
Because in Indonesia.
I think these, sorry, I'm just thinking, I think these are good questions to ask on the 6th, because from a council's perspective, we build a better relationship with an applicant that actually offers things like that in their application. So it'd be really good if they said, look, we're going to do a super duper monitoring program that the council can audit or peer review, as the term Hans used before, is where we'll get another independent person to look at what the results are.
Because if they show transparency, then it builds trust in the people around them that things are safe.
If we're just looking at what the results are of their testing, is that really auditing their
Oh, no, these monitoring boards, we ask for independent. IANZ, which is the Association for Accredited Labs. So we have one in Gisborne, which is Hydro Technologies. So, you know, they either send it to HTL for testing. The sampling has to be independent. So they would have to get HTL technicians to take the sample. HTL might either test it themselves, but if it's hydrocarbons or something more sensitive, they usually send it to RJ Hill Laboratories in Hamilton. So those consent conditions will have quite a bit of independence built into them. Yeah, so we don't trust them to take their own samples.
Yeah, right.
If there is any contamination of the water, how will that be cleaned up, and who will bear the cost of it?
Well, the first, yeah, that's a big question, because the first question is how do you determine contamination, because these are small volumes of water compared with rainfall, say. Contaminants, a lot of them will be the same like bentonite, as I mentioned, which is already here. So we could test any water here and it would have a high quantity of what they're going to put in the thing. So we already can't, we know we won't be able to prove that they've contaminated with the actual main ingredient. So we'll be looking at very small, like out of that 2% of the mud, I would say a high proportion of that would be either bentonite or a product called barite, which is barium sulfate, which is a sandy inert material. It's a bit like glass, so it doesn't deteriorate and it doesn't contaminate anything. And then we're looking over and above that, which is a very small proportion, is any other additives that they might put if they had any super duper lubricant or something that they've discovered that we don't know about.
But when you talk about contamination, there's got got to be in quantities that actually is a material
Can
effect.
be measured, yes.
And the council, when these things happen, we do enforce and we do take action. There was a sewage spill or a dairy spill in Matawai last year, and we took a farm to court, so, and fines are issued. So it is being policed, but it's got to be a material effect.
So you have a table that kind of tells you what, in relationship to the project, little contamination, medium contamination, big and no contamination, sort of that. Because how do you measure contamination in terms of relationship to the project itself? Do you kind of say this project is a minimal, and therefore the contamination level is table 1A?
Would you have parameters that show concern?
Or do you just kind of use the old iometer or the ichrometer to kind of work it out?
It's quite a technical science, but basically the first place you start with is setting a baseline, base level. You know, what is this environment? What levels of these contaminants that we're expecting to find are in there naturally,
Yeah, and then,
or there's none there,
and then you add
and
to
then we measure through the monitoring and compare with the baseline. If we haven't got a baseline and we fear there's some contamination, then we have to find what we call background figures. So we'll find a similar environment. So in this case, we'll just go further away, basically, and look at what's in that soil, of the same soil type, same
and then see what's
topography,
been
same
added and what's
rainfall,
left over.
and then try and get it. So it does, if you're looking at trying to find a needle in a haystack, it's quite hard.
Use magnet.
If you've got very small levels of contamination, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good.
I mean, it'd be a great outcome if that was the case. Small levels, it's just, finding out.
There's some reports on the Taranaki Regional Council's website that they're monitoring reports for drilling activities, and it's got tables in there that shows you the chemicals that they monitor for and where they've exceeded those acceptable, that in the consents they'll have an acceptable level, and which ones have gone beyond that and which ones are within it and that kind of stuff. So that gives an example of the kind of thing we could expect to have in place here, I suppose.
Like RJ Hills can test a suite of 70 or 80 different chemicals all at once. So you just decide, do you want this family, which might be hydrocarbons, say, or it might be medicines, because we're often looking for medicines that end up contaminating. It might be more household personal products, fly spray, that sort of thing. So we might be looking at a range of chemicals, phenols and things like that, and we'll just send off to RJ Hill and say, we want these 70 or 70 of these and 50 of these and 50 of these, and the applicant just pays the bill, and it might be a few $100 to take a sample.
Any more questions of the council in terms of the processes?
You guys are available to come back and talk people through the applications and that
Yes,
kind of stuff?
well, we'd like to hear, as I said before, we'd like to see it considered in writing, because it makes it easy for us to convey a message to other parties, and if there's further questions, we're happy to talk to you, or
We'll send the questions in and respond to
send us an email, and we'll try and respond. And as I said before, right at the beginning, it's a learning exercise for us as well. We are we're trying to find out about this, to deal with this issue, and the council will employ the resources that are required to actually do a professional job here. So we can't do it ourselves. We'll hire the expertise.
There's one thing you can consider, I think, in the whole process. Māori don't own land, they're born as concept or property. When they die, they don't embrace like property.
Right. Just, everyone happy with the discussion we've had and the questions? I mean, council has already said, you know, if you have any more queries and questions, just fire it through them, or talk to Moni, or to Pam, and no doubt they will come back to you with the answers. And if you think you need them back again, then we'll discuss that, and they'll come back. So, but I think we need to, you know, make sure that when they do come back, we have specific things for them.
But I guess there's just one thing I have to say, is that when Charlie told me you were meeting with Apache, I said, well, who's the Apache chief that brings them? Because as a Māori, I wouldn't want anybody using my iwi name by a Western company. And that, for me, that means a lot, because this is about cultural.
Well, that's something you can.
Well, that's something for us to discuss that, not council. So thanks very much.
Yeah, I really appreciate your openness and your willingness to take these things on board. Appreciate it.
They might bring drama with them.